Welcome inside the Treehouse Football Podcast. And when I say welcome, I mean you, the Treehouse listener, are welcome. I, Dan O'Malley, Trey Trenholm, Raj Sharma, we are all welcome. If you are a player or a coach with the Dallas Cowboys, you are not welcome this week. Actually, I take it back. I would love to have any number of you in the Treehouse to explain yourselves for what has to be the worst loss in recent Cowboys memory. And I have racked my brain. I've even done some Googling because my brain doesn't work well enough on its own. And I have not found a game where the Cowboys got bounced earlier than they quote unquote should have been. That makes me feel worse than this one does. Now, I understand recency bias. Yes, this game just happened. Yes, it's some time later, but I'm still pissed. And this game is the most recent example of them just bumblefucking their way through the postseason. But I really tried to look at it from an objectionable standpoint, and I cannot find a recent playoff loss that feels as bad as this one does. How do you feel?
The only loss I in recent memory that I can think of, and yeah, I think I said this to you in the text of the last game at Texas Stadium when Baltimore whipped their ass, like it was like 54-6 or something ridiculous. That's the only other time in recent memory that I mean the NFC Championship loss in 95 when Barry Switzer was a jackass. That one, Baltimore, but this one takes the cake as far as I'm concerned.
So, Raj, how about you?
I had tickets to that game. One of my friends is a player, and he's like, "I got tickets for you," but I was in a car wreck December 19th. I think we all know, and my MRI was scheduled. And I was
Raj, not the Cowboy player.
Yes,
because if the entire team was in a wreck before the game, at least that might be a viable excuse.
But they scheduled my MRI on that Sunday, and I was like, I wonder why that is. It's obvious because it's a playoff game. Nobody was going to be there, so they had to be open. They were scheduled. I went. Guy was like, thanks for coming. I was like, I had tickets to the game. He's like, oh man, you should have gone. And I was like, damn it, man, I should have gone. And then so I missed the first 20 minutes.
So did the Cowboys.
Yeah, because I got home and I saw the score and I was like, man, and it's freezing. And I was like, I'm glad I'm not at this game. And I'm like, there's a lot of ball game left. And right as I said that, I believe that's when the pick six happened. And I was like, yes. Oh yeah, now it's done. Now we're done. It's over.
So adding additional insult to injury, 49ers head coach Shanahan said that they started preparing for the Packers right around that time as well. So even everyone else in the league watching that game, as well as all of us fans, as soon as that pick six happened, we all felt it. We all felt the disturbance. We all knew it. They're done. And even before the pick six, we all kind of knew that they probably wouldn't come back because this Cowboys team does not deal well with adversity. They do not deal well with things that don't go their way from the start.
Yeah.
But the fact that another coach on another team said it to the media.
Yeah.
Oh, what an absolute nut punch.
I have this question, and maybe it's because there is the hope that you can have a comeback with that 27. I think it was 27-0 at one point.
It was 27-7 at halftime.
Yeah, because they scored that last one right before the half.
Yeah.
Even though there was an offsides that the guy, I mean, obviously Matt LaFleur had the right to lose his mind because it was offsides on the Cowboys, but they didn't see it. Oh well. Why not put in? Because CeeDee Lamb wasn't. I mean, that first half, he looked lost. We can all agree on that. Why not pull him out and go? You're not contributing. So let's put in whoever's behind CeeDee Lamb. And then at that point in the third, take out Dak. and go, Cooper Rush, let's see what you can do. At this point, the game's lost. So you might as well just see what somebody else can do, right? I mean, that would be my theory.
Well, we all make the assumption that CeeDee Lamb was running the wrong routes. Dak could have been making the wrong reads.
And
Yeah.
I would like to point out, I think it was probably a little from column A and a little from column B, because on one miscue that they had, CD's running a slant, and Dak doesn't throw the slant. And you see the camera go to Dak close up, and you can see Dak say, that's supposed to be a stop, meaning that's supposed to be a stop route. It's like a quick hit. You come right back from where you stopped, not slant inside. And so from that perspective, Dak's ball was where it was supposed to be. We're assuming there that Dak is correct. Usually the quarterback knows the route more so what it's supposed to be than the wide receiver. But that's just one play. There were plenty of other throws in that game where Dak had he was not on target or didn't see the pick six. My God, that looks like a rookie throw.
I couldn't even believe that. I'm like, how are you know that linebacker is going to drop?
I don't make that throw in Madden.
and even beyond that pick six, like when he was just trying to get rid of the ball, he nearly threw an interception because he pitched it. He didn't even throw it. He pitched it to the Green Bay linebacker.
Yeah, that was in the second half. I think either late in the third, early in the fourth, when they were attempting some sort of a comeback. So let's look at that real quick. So we go ahead.
Can I ask one quick question?
Yeah.
Did any of y'all actually really, heart of hearts, even after the first quarter, really think they were going to come back? Because I didn't. I had the same vibe that I did when they were getting their ass whipped in Arizona, which was after the first quarter, like, this game's lost.
So that's what I'm saying.
There was nothing about their demeanor, actions, anything that I thought they were coming back.
That's exactly. So that was in my head. I'm like, why are we still? Why is the same first team going out? If they can't produce, let's have the other millionaires, the lesser, higher salaried millionaires behind them, go out and see what they can do and prove that maybe they have what it takes, because these guys did not. It was just terrible to watch, and it was just so soul destroying. I remember after the half, we went to Quarter Bar in Addison, and it's the quietest I've ever heard that bar. It was just sad. And at some point I just started laughing. I'm like, this is the saddest bar I've been to. This is
so this is where I go back to the original question of, is this the worst loss in recent memory for the Cowboys? To me, it absolutely is.
Yeah, for sure.
One, because it was a playoff game that they quote unquote should have won. But the reason why, to me, it's the worst is because it's another example from this season that it appeared they either didn't show up at all, or kind of like what happened in Buffalo, kind of like what happened with San Francisco earlier this year, similar to what happened with Arizona. They got punched in the mouth at the beginning of the game, and they didn't know how to respond. It's like I talked about earlier this season on this show, wide mouth Dak. Whenever Dak has the wide mouth and the eyes, it looks like someone just bopped him on the nose with a newspaper because he just piddled on the rug. And he's got that look on his face like, what happened?
Yeah.
Whenever he's got that look on his face, the Cowboys are hosed. Because if he can't pull it together, then my God. So it's like they didn't show up, and because things didn't go their way from the beginning, they didn't know how to respond. That's why all of us felt how the way the game started, none of us felt confident in their ability to come back. Did they make it interesting-ish in the second half by throwing up, 32 points by the end of it? Yeah, but they still lost by 16. So the final score of 48-32 is somewhat deceiving. But the reality of it is Green Bay had won that game so early on that in the second half, they're playing completely differently. They're going to give up Cowboys trash touchdowns. They don't care because they know they're going to the next round.
And that's exactly what I saw.
They pulled their starters.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, which is what we should have done. So it's the same thing. When I saw that, I'm like, they're letting them. At that point, they were just like, man, we can't beat them this bad. So give them a couple.
And then you really go back and it begs the question of Dak Prescott was a 2-time first-team All-SEC quarterback. has the size, strength, arm, all of it.
Mhm.
Why was he, we talk about Cowboys drafted him in the 3rd round and like what a great deal, but he was in 3rd and 4th round on everyone's board. Why? Is it because he shrinks in the big moments? Because that really does seem like to be the big knock on him. Because otherwise, numbers wise, everything else.
I mean, you want to talk about numbers wise. I mean, Tony Romo had one of the best quarterback ratings in NFL history for a quarterback.
Tony Romo was a better quarterback than people ever gave him credit for.
Yeah, but it goes back to what I always say. There's an it fact. There's a motive.
Sorry, cats are having a fight. Turns out my cats have more fight than the Cowboys.
But it's that it factor. Like there should have been that fire when it shouldn't have been like, hey, see, that was supposed to be a stop, Parumph. That you need to get in people's asses. If you're the leader,
thank you for saying that. I was feeling it, Raj. I was feeling that you need to get in that ass. So I appreciate you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're the leader of that team, and you're the guy who's going to drive them down the field, and you're going to drive them to take them down to the Super Bowl, then you need to get up somebody's ass immediately. Otherwise, I mean, that Tony Romo did that. Every time he threw an interception, he would just slap that knee, and I hated it every fucking time he did it. I'm like, it's like, oh man, well, shit, next time. And then he would just trot off to the sidelines. I'm like,
he would do that, and that also drove me crazy, but at least somewhat of a redeeming quality of his screw-ups like that.
Yeah.
He would still, in the Buffalo game, I always go back to this. He throws 5 interceptions, and he still marches the team down to win the damn game. Whereas Dak throws one.
I got you.
That's what he does. He gets locked up, and then just nothing.
The difference in my mind is Tony Romo had that Brett Favre gunslinger mentality of, no, it didn't matter how many interceptions he threw. He was still going to go out there and do it again. And 9 times out of 10, he was probably going to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Dak throws that one interception, and it seems like he's just mentally, he doesn't have, he wants to be a gunslinger, but he doesn't have the mentality.
It's like he starts questioning his own existence.
Yes.
It's like, this is what it is. Dak Prescott appears to suffer from imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And for those that don't know, that's where you feel like wherever you are, you don't belong, and that people are going to see you as the fraud that you think you are or might be. Now, I'm not sure if that's exactly the textbook, definition of it, but you kind of get the idea. And that seems to be sort of what happens when he plays. When things are good, things are good. When things are bad, he gets in a hole and he can't dig himself out of it. And that's where I go back to the problem of coaching. As of the time that we are talking about this, at the time of this recording, Mike McCarthy still has a job. And in our group chat, the 3 of us had him fired before he could leave the stadium. Trey, in a much more violent and non-politically correct fashion that we should not share publicly.
No.
But trust us, Raj and I both go, ooh, hey. Ooh.
Yeah. That was
all I said was Valet should just lose his car and make him Uber home. Trey's ended in some like a fiery crash.
Well, had they been the away team.
Still.
But as it is, McCarthy still got a job. Jane Slater from NFL Network is saying that there's nuances to it that they're trying to figure out. And are they going to, and I'm not sure what the nuances. It's like, because Dak's got a year and McCarthy's got a year, and they're looking at it. Well, they were really successful. Well, but they were successful in the way that all recent Cowboys teams have been successful, which is successful in the regular season, and they take a big steaming dump in the playoffs.
Michael Irvin went as far as saying to just clean house. That was the latest thing. He just went and said, just clean house, just start over again. And that just means for Cowboys fans, it's going to be all rebuild. So it's going to be a terrible next season. And the next season,
okay.
If they did that.
We are okay with that. Honest to God. Like I was having a conversation at the bar where I was watching the game and with a Cleveland Browns fan, 2 Cleveland Browns fans. And they were both saying, man, sorry, we feel your pain. And I was like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
You got used to in nonstop losing. So your expectations were low to begin with.
Yeah.
Cowboys fans of our age group still remember the 90s. And so our expectations are high.
Yeah.
And we can tolerate multiple seasons of sucking as long as we know it's going somewhere.
Right.
What this current influx of Cowboys is doing and what they did during the Romo years is they're good enough to keep us interested. They're good enough to sell a bunch of merch, but they're not good enough to do even once what the teams of the 90s or the 70s did.
Yeah.
And that's what's so frustrating is, and while other fan bases like the Browns fans can't quite relate to it because, yeah, you lost your game the day before, we lost our game, and so we both feel badly. But because our expectations are higher, we demand more. Therefore, we come crashing down more.
But you know what? This is what's really sad, and I have really started breaking down my fandom with the Cowboys. Why do we have any expectations? Because if we're being honest, outside of the 70s, 80s, mediocre at best. You have a 6-year window of the 90s. And this is the really key part of this. It was pre-salary cap. Jerry could money whip a team. You could still cut people. You didn't, Jimmy Johnson, that's where, because he would cut anyone. He didn't give a two shits. But after that, it's been nothing but mediocrity and suck.
Yeah.
Why do we expect anything less?
And Dak at that press conference, when he came out,
more,
he just came out and went, sucked. Yeah, correct. Thanks. We didn't need a press conference for you to tell us that. And then I heard this, and I don't know if you guys heard the same thing, but he said if we get rid of McCarthy, they should get rid of him as well. Like he went as far as to say that. And I'm like, is that an offer? Because that sounds great. You know what I mean? We still have, there's a lot of interest in other quarterbacks out there. There's a lot of interest in Belichick. I know that. Apparently there was already a phone call between the Crypt Keeper and Bill Belichick. So
I don't see that. I don't see that
I don't either. And that's a whole separate conversation as far as that we can get into today.
Yeah.
But there's so many different angles to touch on with this game because with a loss like this, it opens up Pandora's box for all of our whining and bitching and moaning, which is all justified. It's all justified.
Maybe they get Jerry. They get Jimmy Johnson back. Because
you know what, Raj? I'm glad you mentioned that because I've got an idea that I'm going to share with you coming up next.
All right.
You're listening to the Treehouse. Visit us online at treehouseonair.com.
You're in the Treehouse. Visit us online at treehouseonair.com.
Welcome back inside the Treehouse Football Podcast, where we're all properly pissed off. And at halftime, the Cowboys were down 27-7. And they got, as far as I know, they got the best motivational speech that they've had all year. The only problem is it was Jimmy Johnson giving it during the halftime show on Fox NFL's halftime show. So in case you missed it, or would just like a refresher, here's Jimmy Johnson at halftime on TV saying what he would be telling the team if he was coaching the Cowboys down 20 points to the Green Bay Packers.
I don't need to have people pointing the fingers one thing or another. You get your rear end in there and you play the way you know how to play. We can win the game. We're going to open it up. We're going to go fast tempo. Defense, get after Jordan Love. You can't give him that much time. You do what you're supposed to do, we'll win this game.
And I'm not in the locker room to see what Mike McCarthy tells the team. I don't know what Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator, is telling his defense at halftime, or if he's already on the phone with Seattle. But But I do know what I am able to see. What I'm able to see is Jerry Jones had more fire in his belly on a television set
Jimmy Johnson.
than what did I say?
Jerry Jones.
My bad. I'm going to restart that sentence. Jimmy Johnson had more fire in his belly from a television set than I saw from Mike McCarthy the entire season.
Yes.
That to me is a problem, and the fact that the team seems to act the same way McCarthy does, which is kind of what happens. The team's personality will kind of take on the personality of its coach. Look at the Lions, and we're left with a lackluster performance. Trey,
you weren't wrong though when you started off and you said Jerry Jones instead of Jimmy Johnson, because when they would pan to him in the owner's box, he was red-faced and pissed, which was more than you were seeing out of McCarthy or anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, when they cut to Jerry Jones in the booth, you couldn't tell if it was him or a baboon's ass.
I think that was just the Johnny Walker Blue, but that's
he'd be red full time if that was the case.
But at one point you could see Jerry Jones when I think it was the pick six. He had whatever was in his hand, he threw it on the ground, and you could read his lips. He goes, "That's game." And he said it, but Mike McCarthy always joke, and I have since he's been our coach. He just looks like he's ordering off a takeout menu. That's what he's got when he's just looking like that. So when you're like, Jimmy Johnson had fire in his belly, and I'm like, you know what? And he probably had Panda Express in his, because he just looks like he's always ordering something. There's no sense of urgency. There's no.
McCarthy also probably has fire in his belly from the indigestion from the chili dog.
But you know, we make fun of McCarthy for that, but it's like I heard a clip from the Kelsey's podcast, and both of them have basically played for Andy Reid.
Yeah,
and and they just joke about how if it's an Andy Reid coach team, the food on the bus and the plane and in the locker room is going to be primo.
Although Raj, I think you're right. It really does look like, with the play sheet in front of McCarthy's face, it does look like not only a takeout menu. Yeah. What it looks like he was so hungry when he pulled up to Sonic that he ripped the entire menu off the stand.
You see the wires from the red button dangling down.
Or his orders are just so big, and he has a dry erase marker, so he can just use the menu and then watch it down.
And maybe that's part of the problem with the offense is he has difficulty calling just for one blizzard. He wants to try them all.
and they're in the huddle going, "What's a blizzard? Like what play is that?" And he just they just keep hearing it in their helmets. But Tony Pollard, let's go to this. Tony Pollard, now that he's got his contract, the lack of any effort. Well, he got the
he got the franchise tag. So yeah, but what he was doing, motivation to me was not a problem for him. It just seemed like for whatever from the beginning of the season to the end of it, Tony Pollard did not look the same. At times he looked pretty good. At times he's meh. But that was sort of how the Cowboys were as a whole for the entire season. Look back at the games where they got their asses handed to them, and that's exactly what happened in the game against Green Bay.
And they were also the most penalized team, I believe, or at least top three, and which is just mental mistakes. And
that's something that has been a constant in the Mike McCarthy era. Two things that have been problems for the Cowboys since he's been the head coach. Number one has been penalties. And number two is the clock management. In this game, clock management wasn't going to be a problem, other than the fact that they forgot to start.
Yeah, that is. I don't know what they can tell the media, what they can tell the fans to excuse that. Did they go out the night before? Because I remember I used to have a club back in the day, and I'd see those guys, like these guys, but I'd see the Cowboys players come in, and I'm like, isn't tomorrow a home game? And then I'd watch them, and I'm like, oh, it was Quincy Carter was the, and we got to talk about that too, real quick. But Quincy Carter would come in. I'm like, you're playing tomorrow, and they'd be like 3 interceptions for Quincy Carter. I'm like, I can tell you why that's happening.
Yeah.
Like, I know exactly what he drank. So,
Here's the thing with that, though. That's not anything that Cowboys players before Quincy Carter and after Quincy Carter hadn't done. Trust me, we all know Michael Irvin did plenty of going out before games, and guess what? It never got in the way. He still showed up, and he was still the playmaker.
Yeah,
there are great examples of great athletes or sportsmen doing things at a high level that you wouldn't expect them to because of what they did the day before. Was it David Wells with the Yankees threw a perfect game? And what did he tell the media after the game? He's like, "Man, I was hung over."
yeah.
let's. I mean, you're just talking about different. Because Michael Irvin, you're talking about going out before the game. You're talking about the night before. Michael Irvin was at the strip club watching the noon games before.
Yeah, Jerry was cutting his lines up in the locker room during halftime. Like, you were doing great out there, buddy.
Mhm.
There's also a theory that I just read yesterday that says that the Cowboys have been cursed by Quincy Carter, and until he is inducted into, I'm not making this up, until he's inducted into the Ring of Honor, there will be no Super Bowl for the Dallas Cowboys. This is just something I read yesterday.
Then let there be no Super Bowl ever. Go Chiefs.
Dallas's original professional football team.
Uh-huh.
I used to work out at the same place as Quincy Carter. I don't think he has it in him to even do a curse. He's having a hard time just getting from machine to machine. So I don't think he's worried so much about what the Cowboys are doing now and cursing them or something.
Now, are you talking about from the Frosty machine to the drink machine?
Yeah. I've never heard of a draft call a machine, but it's just a, you know what I mean?
All that brings me to this. Once again, to state, McCarthy, at the time that we've done, at the time of this recording, McCarthy still has a job. A bunch of players still have their jobs. And I saw a quote from CeeDee Lamb a few days before the game saying that he appreciates the demand that the fans have for wanting a Super Bowl, brought home to Dallas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, he's like, I appreciate that, but trust me, the fans don't want it as bad as we do. We're in here every day, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yes, they do.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they do, CeeDee, because you're a player for this little window. And there are those of us who are older than you whose window is much larger.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl since CeeDee Lamb's been alive. So
Right.
I'm pretty sure I want a Super Bowl more badly than he does.
Yes.
I just don't have the physical ability, especially not now, to go do anything about it. He does.
Mm-hmm.
So that leads me to this. I wish the players could experience what we, the fans, experience when they play so embarrassingly poorly.
Mm-hmm.
So for me and my wife, we'll go to a bar. We live in an area. It is not North Texas. It is not Texas. It is not the Southwest. There are fans from teams from all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't get the warmest of welcomes when we show up wearing Cowboys stuff. So when the team doesn't show up to play like they did on Sunday, and we're left in a bar surrounded by Packers fans wearing a Cowboys star on our chest,
Mm-hmm.
we are embarrassed. It is embarrassing. And if the players could experience that just once, I think they would, I don't know if respond better, but at the very least would have a deeper appreciation for what they do and how it affects people. Because it's not all people just burning jerseys and punching their flat screen TVs, although that obviously happens. It's just this thinking of how can you, maybe it's me taking it too personally, how can you go out there and perform so poorly
Mm-hmm.
that as a fan base, we're embarrassed to be wearing the star?
Yeah. And that's again why I ask, what is the mindset behind? We're already losing this game. The owner and GM of the team just threw whatever was in his hand down and says that's game. You already know
halfway through the second quarter.
Yeah. So why not go, hey, you know what, Dak, we're done. Just go ahead. I mean, you obviously didn't come to play. So sit your ass down. CD, you can't figure out a route. So you sit down. And all you guys that have been sitting here going, when am I going to get my shot? Get the fucking game. Let's go. Let's see what you guys got. And then go, okay, well, at least everyone sort of attempted.
That would require a coach peeking out from behind his Sonic menu to pay attention to what's actually happening on the field.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you, everything you just said, Jimmy Johnson would do. Yes. And that gets me to my final thing with this game. And that is based on the audio that we heard with Jimmy Johnson at halftime, seemingly more fired up than Coach McCarthy all season.
Yeah.
Tara and I discussed the possibility, like most Cowboys fans do, maybe, man, if they could just bring Jimmy back, which we know is not going to happen. But it did offer a beautiful fantasy in my mind. And that is Jimmy Johnson does come back to the Cowboys, except he doesn't wait for Jerry to fire McCarthy. He doesn't even wait for a phone call. He doesn't wait for an invitation. He just takes his boat straight from the Florida Keys right through the Gulf and beaches that fucker in Houston and takes it all the way up to Frisco, crashes through the front of the Star in Frisco, and just starts firing everybody and takes over. And Jerry is so stunned, he's just going to be like, well, okay.
I love
Get rid of McCarthy, get rid of whoever he doesn't want, let him come in, coach one season, and my fantasy turned into a wet dream. I know it's not going to happen, but it's a beautiful thought just to have Jimmy crash through the front door of the Star and say, I'm taking this bitch over, follow me. And just see what happens.
Yeah. I looked at it like just like the first game of the season is just McCarthy standing there, assuming he still has his job. And then just out of nowhere, you just see Jimmy come out with the perfect hair. And depending on the weather, either the white jacket with the blue star and the blue, or just and then he just taps McCarthy on the shoulder, and McCarthy's like, "So what is it you want to eat?" And he's like, "Oh shit, that's Jimmy." And he just thought it was somebody else that wanted to order off his menu, and he goes, "You're out." And it's just like a tag team, and then he's out for the rest of the game, and then that's it, and then you don't ever see him again, and he rides off into the foot-long conies of the world.
It'd be really fitting, though, on his way out, give him a sack of his Sonic, and that has a chicken sandwich instead of a burger, so we got the wrong order.
I think I've got another fantasy, and that would have been at halftime of that game. Jimmy flies from LA, to Arlington. With the smoke machine, comes running out of the tunnel with his 90s Apex jacket. And his hair is not just beautiful, but on the flight, he fashioned it into a stellar white mohawk. And he comes in and he's ready to coach the second half and just to see the whole place light up. At that point, there would be a roof in the stadium, but it wouldn't be because Jerry pushed a button.
Yeah, I was just say, and I love how you said that he just flew at halftime. You didn't say there was a plane or a helicopter. He just fucking flew.
That's right.
That's how angry he was.
He put on his blue cape with a Cowboys star and phew!
And saved the day. That would have been incredible. I'm on board with that fantasy. 100%.
And unfortunately, that's what we're left with of another offseason of disappointment is fantasy. Meanwhile, other teams move on. Jordan Love moves on, rightfully so. Quick question. So where I was watching the game, I couldn't hear every second of the sound as far as the broadcast goes, right? They did show Cowboys fans in the stands certainly looking shocked and dismayed. They're in a state of disbelief, which honestly, shock and disbelief should have gone away after the pick six in the second quarter because we all knew that's it. The game's over. This team doesn't like coming from behind. They're terrible with adversity.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any boos from the fans in that game?
At the end, yes.
I didn't even
To
stay
me,
to
that's
see.
where I think that, like, had I been in the stands right after that pick six, I would have been booing. And that takes a lot for me to boo my team because I hate it. I typically hate it. But I hated the way they played so much. I wish the entire stadium would have gotten in their ass with a big old boo-doo, like a boo dildo, and not stopped until they actually responded in a positive manner.
Is that going to be this week's update on Only Dan's?
You know what? We all deal with pain in different ways. Some of us gape. I feel like that's kind of a nice little tagline for the season of the Treehouse Football Podcast. We gape. All right. Well, I at least feel a little bit better to bitch about it in here with you guys. Hope you do as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Go Chiefs.
Trey, I'm with you. I'm on the Chiefs bandwagon now. At least for the remainder of this season. Again.